What have Doctors Ari Satyan, Grant O'Connell, Remy Julian, Stephen Collard, Javier Cahurs and Professors Darius Martuvius and Tedas Prasukas have in common? Well, they are all research scientists and have jointly proven that vaping indoors has zero impact on you, me, the bystanders, and the whole environment at large. Hey folks, Korax here. Good to be with you guys once again. It's slightly chilly today morning in Toronto, Canada. A perfect time to discuss whether we should vape indoors or outdoors.
What the f*** is that?
You see, most people still don't understand the difference between smoking and vaping. They look the same. So people automatically perceive it to be as harmful, if not worse.
Wait, not in the house.
It's fine.
It stinks.
It doesn't stink like smoke though.
And the media bias against vaping, together with tobacco dollars, is not helping either.
It may not have tobacco in it, but the E-Cigs are still delivering the same carcinogens that are known to cause chronic disease and cancer, and the secondhand vapor is emitting it as well.
Bullshit! Do you know what they are doing? They are telling us half the story. Of course there will be particulates. We are talking about vapor here, not fresh air. Though it's another matter that fresh air sometimes can be bad as well.
30 days, the average air quality level in this city has registered as hazardous.
But here we are talking about e-cigarette vapor versus normal cigarettes. And the reports don't say what were the findings with cigarettes.
E-cigarette vapor contains no carbon monoxide, 98% less metals, 98% less carbonyls, 98% less tobacco-specific nitrosamines, 98% less volatile organic compounds, and 98 to 99% less polyaromatics.
It is not about harm elimination, it is about harm reduction. There are over 60 studies of e-cigarette vapor and the constituents of the surrounding air while vaping. And every one of them indicate that our exhaled vapor contributes significantly less particulates in the air compared to smoking tobacco cigarettes. Most importantly, the 2014 study by Dr. Igor Burstin, who is an associate professor at Drexel University's Department of Environmental and Occupational Health. In that research, he found that in the worst case scenario, e-cigarette vapor had contaminants less than 1% of TLVs, threshold limit values of risk exposure standards. His conclusion? E-cigarette vapor exposures to bystanders are orders of magnitude less, thus pose no apparent concern. And now this study by the 7 researchers at Netherlands. This study, named Characterization of Spatial and Temporal Dispensation Differences between Exhaled E-Cigarette Mist and Cigarette Smoke, was a collaboration between Kaunas University of Technology, Lithuania and Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich. The research is one of the first detailed studies conducted to investigate the dynamic properties of exhaled e-vapor aerosol particles. The researchers put smokers and vapors in a closed room with various scientific instruments attached. They smoked and vaped in front of a heated mannequin, which represented a bystander, and under different ventilation rates. Participants used the most commonly found tobacco cigarettes and vaping products. Both closed and open system e-cigarettes were used. And aerosol particle concentrations and size distributions at the bystander's position were measured. And the finding? Oh yes, it is worth advertising, but the media will never. For both product categories, e-cigarette as well as tobacco cigarette, the particle concentrations registered as exhaled with each puff were in the same order of magnitude. However, for e-cigarettes, the particle concentration returned rapidly to background values within seconds. Thus, successive puffs didn't add to the accumulation. For conventional cigarettes, it increased with every puff. The recordings kept registering higher and higher, returning to background levels only after 30 or 45 minutes. And unlike for the e-cigarettes tested, such temporal variation was totally dependent on the room ventilation rate. Particle size measurements showed that exhaled e-cigarette particles were smaller than those emitted during smoking conventional cigarettes and evaporated almost immediately after exhalation. Thus, the removal was by automatic evaporation. No ventilation was required. But for tobacco cigarette smoke, the displacement was only through ventilation. Conclusion? Well, let me quote Dr. Grant O'Connell on it. Exhaled e-vapor particles have a different composition to cigarette smoke, and here we show the physical properties are also significantly different. This data adds to the growing body of evidence that vaping indoors is unlikely to pose an air quality issue, said Dr. O'Connell.
Where an increasing number of smokers believe that e-vapor products are as harmful or more harmful than the conventional cigarettes. But I think what's also a serious contributor to this is the misreporting of scientific studies and the subsequent presentation in the media. I think it's having a measurable impact on consumer confidence.
The bottom line is, e-cigarette vapor and tobacco cigarette smoke are entirely two different things, and there is no second-hand smoke or passive vaping with e-cigarettes. So, can you vape indoors? Of course you can. Science agrees. But the question is, should you? Though as a general rule, we should not be vaping where cigarette smoking is not permitted. And of course, in closed public spaces, we should never, as a general courtesy to the other occupants. But this research study proves that our exhaled vapor is harmless nonetheless. As such, it is perfectly fine to vape indoors at home, even in the presence of family. The UK government has already issued an advisory to employers to encourage workplaces to adopt pro-vaping policies that make it as easy as possible and convenient for smokers to switch on the basis of growing evidence which indicate that the risk to health of the bystanders from exposure to e-cigarette vapor is extremely low. Canada has also passed a law this year to encourage smokers to quit using vaping and has approved media advertising as well as open sales of e-cigarettes. France, Germany, Russia, Netherlands, Ireland, New Zealand, Austria, Iceland, the Czech Republic, Greece, Switzerland, and a boatload of other countries are also pro-vaping. People have started seeing the light. What are you waiting for? Chuck that smoke and pick up an e-cigarette, like right now. Because remember, vaping is a healthier alternative. And we have the right to make that choice.